The Victrix Pro BFG has a lot of features, but is it enough to justify its $180 price tag? Let's find out.
Let's get it. Yeah.
Greetings, comrades. This is Gaming Caleb, back with another controller review. And this time, we are reviewing the Victrix Pro BFG. Now, I've spent a little time with this controller over the last few weeks, especially since I got the Xbox Series X, and I'm going to be honest with y'all, I'm a little mixed on this controller. There's some things I like about it, and there's some things I don't like about it. But, as always with these reviews, we gotta start with the feel of the controller. But of course, before we do, for those who don't know, the Victrix Pro BFG is a very modular controller. It was actually first released on the PlayStation a few years ago, and this is the Xbox version that came out earlier this year. Basically, as far as modularity goes, we'll delve more into the features, but, you know, it's one of the things I like about this controller, but, again, there are some things I don't like about it, and we'll get to that. So, let's start with the feel of the controller, and as you pick it up, it definitely feels in a way similar to the Xbox controller, since, you know, it has that similar shape to it with the side wings and stuff like that. It fits pretty comfortably in my hands, though as you grip it, you notice there are two different grips. There are these two in the front, as well as these side ones. They're weird. They feel, well, this feels a bit softer than this. This is also soft, but this feels a little bit softer, like you kind of rub against it. It does feel a bit, you know, it feels comfortable enough. It's not going to slip out of your hands or anything, because with all these grooves and stuff, you don't have to worry about it slipping out during an intense gaming session. But it feels pretty good, especially considering that we have the 4 back buttons on the back here, which naturally, for me anyway, your middle and ring finger is going to rest on those. And they don't get in the way, and they do require a little bit of force to actuate. You know, not a lot, but it doesn't take too much force to actuate. But if you just hold it like this, and you don't put too much pressure through your fingers, then you won't actuate them by accident. But it definitely has a few aesthetic differences compared to your standard Xbox controller, which I'll have my Stormcloud controller right here. You notice in the top here, the triggers are a lot wider on the Victrix than they are in your standard Xbox controller. The bumpers are actually a little bit smaller, but the bumpers are not only a bit bigger, but a lot wider. And they have a nice little, like, curve to them. It's actually a little bit more than your standard Xbox controller. You probably can't tell from the camera, but there's a bit more of a wave around it, so it definitely has a nice grip for your finger. Though, we'll get more to these triggers later. But you'll notice there's a little bit of a texturing. Almost looks to me like a little brick wall. It definitely feels nice. It's not as grippy as the standard Xbox triggers, but they feel nice enough. And, yeah. Another thing regarding the feel of the controller, no matter what stick orientation you have this on, it still feels like your standard Xbox controller. It's just you're swapping your thumb here if you're doing the symmetrical layout, and if you're using the fight pad, naturally you will be resting your finger on or thumb on a thumbstick. You'll be resting on the buttons here, but we'll get to that later on. And the front buttons here, you know, the menu options, share button, and this little profile button. Well, actually, that's not a profile button; it's a function button. We'll get to that later. They work, but the plastic feels a little cheap on these. It's not as solid as the rest of the controller. Which, by the way, this controller is significantly lighter than the Xbox Elite Series 2 controller. I dare say it's about the same size. Well, not the same size, the same weight. It's almost weighs the same as your standard Xbox controller, maybe a little bit lighter. Kind of hard to tell. I don't have a scale to to clarify that, but if you watch like Gamer Heaven, he'll probably do a much better weight comparison than I can. But as far as feel goes, it feels good. For the most part, anyway. Now, for features. Now, here's a little clip showing everything that comes with the Victrix right out of the box. Alright, so here's everything that comes with the Victrix Pro BFG right out of the box. You have the controller itself, the pre-installed left module, as well as the pre-installed right module. You have the 10-foot long Type-C to Type-A cable. You have the case, which carries all of your gizmos. You also have the screwdriver, which you use to unscrew these modules in order to swap them around. You have 2 additional D-pads. You have their standard 4-directional D-pad, as well as the hybrid D-pad, which I'm honestly not too much of a fan of. You have a tall thumbstick. You have a short dome thumbstick. You have the fight pad module with the micro switch buttons. You have the 2 8-directional thumbstick gates, and you have the wireless USB dongle. Yeah, you get quite a bit for your money, though whether or not it's worth it, we'll get to it later. But yeah, for those that don't know, the Victrix Pro BFG is a modular controller. This is actually the first modular controller I've ever owned from any console, and as you saw in that clip, it comes with quite a few accessories. So let's get the simple ones out of the way. For starters, you have 3 swappable D-pads. Though, I'll tell you right now, if you put the standard 4-directional D-pad on there, good luck getting it out, because there's no like groove you can rest your finger on so you can pull it out easy. Like there's a little bit, but that's don't cut your fingernails before taking this off, because this does not come off easy. I tried once, like I'm never using that again. As for this pseudo hybrid D-pad, it feels a little better, but I don't know. It's just not the elite hybrid D-pad. Even the stock hybrid D-pad on the standard Xbox controller is better than this. So I pretty much stick with this sort of dish-like D-pad, and it works well enough. Though, yeah, the D-pad feels a little bit mushy. Yeah, it doesn't have that satisfying click that your standard Xbox controller has. But anyway, that's it for the D-pads. You also have 4 different thumbsticks, whereas the DualSense Edge and the Xbox Elite Series 2 controller has 6 swappable thumbsticks. This one only has 4. You have the 2 standard ones that are on here, which feel nice enough. You know, my thumbs aren't going to slip on it. Though, you also have a convex dome thumbstick, which, yeah, the rubber on it feels a little bit slippery for me, so I'm afraid, like, it doesn't have that texturing that the DualSense Edge's thumbsticks have. Let's put it that way. So I'm not too big on that. You do have, which is pretty much a staple for modular controllers these days, you have your tall thumbstick, which you mainly use for like first-person shooters, have a little more throw with your aim. This little touch there, you have a little, probably can't tell from my crappy phone camera, but there's a crosshair molded on the top here to let you know, yeah, this is your sniper stick, your aiming stick. And yeah, there's that, but I kind of stick with these 2 thumbsticks. They feel nice enough, though I do question the quality of this rubber on here. It doesn't feel as good as like your standard controller. So I'm curious how long this will last in the long run, but they do the job just fine. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this controller has 4 back buttons, and they're pretty easy to reprogram. You can do it on the fly through your the controller itself, or you can do it through the Victrix Control app, which you can download on the Xbox and configure it that way. But basically, how you do it is you hold the function button and the button you want to map. Then you press it on one of the back panels you want to map it to, and then it's set. Yeah, you do it on the fly. Works well enough. But yeah, not only that, but you also have a profile button, but you can switch to 3 different profiles. So you can set like one for like Call of Duty, you can set in one for like Apex Legends, or one for Fortnite, you know, whatever back button combination you think is best. You can convert it to 3 different profiles and work from there. And you'll notice these little panels here. These are for the clutch triggers. It's basically a 5-way trigger stop that's unique to the Victrix Pro BFG. I believe it's on the Victrix Gambit as well. I'm not too sure. I don't have one of those yet, so maybe I'll try that out later. But basically, you press it once, it'll actually release the clutch trigger, and then you have a full hair trigger. Like, it cuts off almost all the travel, like 90% of the travel. But with this, you hold this tab down, then you push the trigger to the position you want, and then release it, and now it'll go to that travel distance. Though for me, it's kind of hard to tell if you get to one of the middle trigger stops, because here, this is full travel. It cuts off a little bit of the travel. Yeah, it seems to work well enough, but yeah, we'll get to these triggers later. Talk more about those later. So that's part of the controller itself, but what's really cool about this controller is these modules. Now it comes with this little hex screwdriver tool, and you take this, you basically loosen these screws. You don't have to worry about them falling off. They're permanently attached to the plate. In fact, see, I'm shaking it, they're not falling out, so they'll stay on. But yeah, we'll get to the plate here in a minute. But basically, you unscrew those, and then for the left module, you can swap it this way, and then have a symmetrical thumbstick layout like for PlayStation controllers. Now for the gate here, this is mainly so you can take this friction ring off and install one of these 8-directional rings. Though it's a little hard to tell whether you have it aligned or not. Maybe if you align that dot on the top, the dot up here, that's how you do it. But I never really use these. It's mainly for fighting games, which we'll get to that other module here in a minute. But yeah, you can swap the module here to either symmetrical PlayStation layout or the asymmetrical Xbox layout. So that's really cool. So if you like a symmetrical thumbstick layout, you have that. Now for the right module, this is a different story. Now you can't swap this module around. Like Gears and Tech covered this controller a while back for the PlayStation. Needless to say, he wasn't a huge fan of this controller. And after using it, you'll probably see why. Now, this module, you can't swap it this way. Have buttons down here, so in a way it would mimic the Wii U Pro controller. Remember that? So yeah, you can't do that because A, the buttons will be upside down. You can't really swap those. And B, it's shaped a little differently compared to the left module. So not only can you not swap it this way, you can't put it on this side either. That's not what it's for. You can't really swap that around. What you can do, though, is this. Swap it for the Fight Pad module. This is a really cool module. Naturally, it's meant for fighting games, so you could theoretically use it in other games as well. But what's interesting, unlike, I forgot to mention these buttons, unlike these face buttons, which are standard membranes, they feel a little bit squishy. These are micro switches. Yeah, try this in Tekken 6. Very responsive and really nice feel, especially with the click. It feels nice. Yeah, there you just, and then you're good to go. But yeah, it's primarily for fighting games, hence the name Fight Pad. So yeah, this module only goes in one way, you can't screw it up. And that's a big thing, the modular ability of this controller. The module is, you can swap this left one to do symmetrical, asymmetrical sticks. Or this way you can swap this out for the Fight Pad. really nice. And another thing worth mentioning, you can actually recalibrate the thumbsticks to the controller itself. You can do it through the control app as well. But as you do it through the controller, just hold the function button down here, then press down on the thumbstick and you recalibrate. This will flash rapidly. Then you move the thumbstick in a circular motion a few times, then press that button to finish, and it'll be recalibrated. So yeah, it has quite a lot. Not only that, but you can use it wired, because it's in the case here. We have a pretty long cable, really good length, but you also include, it also has a USB wireless dongle. Basically, you plug this in, you want to use it wirelessly, you can use this. Now, unlike the PlayStation version of the Victrix Pro BFG, this has Bluetooth, so you can actually connect it to Android and stuff like that, if you so desire. A lot of these wireless third-party Xbox controllers have Bluetooth, so you can connect it to Android. Mainly if you're playing, like, you know, cloud gaming through the Xbox app or whatever. That's mainly what it's for. But if you're gonna go wirelessly on the Xbox, you need this dongle. Otherwise, go with the wired. And yeah, we'll get more to that dongle here later. So yeah, there's quite a lot of features for this controller, which is why it runs for $180.
Okay, so one thing I forgot to talk about the Victrix Pro BFG is the battery life. Now, the controller has a 2000 milliamp hour battery, which you'd think would have a large battery life compared to the Series 2, but no, far from it. In fact, it's about half the battery life of the Elite Series 2 controller. Whereas the Elite Series 2 controller has a battery life of around 40 hours, the Victrix Pro BFG only has 20 hours. So, still a decent amount of time, but I don't know, it could be longer.
Now, for ease of use, you know, as far as Xbox goes, either use it wirelessly or use the long cable. It'll be good to go. Though, if you want to like truly customize it and configure it, you want to download the Victrix Control app to the Microsoft Store to the Xbox. That pretty much allows you to do all the things I mentioned earlier, remapping the back buttons, recalibrating the joysticks. But it also lets you run diagnostics to make sure everything's working, make sure like the thumbsticks aren't getting any drift, make sure all the buttons are responsive, make sure the triggers are good. And not only that, but you can update the firmware of the controller through that app. So it's a really neat thing to have if you plan on getting this controller. And this PC goes, you know, same deal, just plug it in, you're good to go. I don't know, I'm not sure if the control app's available to PC. It might be, since you download through the Microsoft Store. And yeah, once you set it up, it pretty much works. Though, as nice as all the features are of this controller, there are a few things I don't like about this controller. There are three sort of big ones. One's really big for me. Three really big ones, but this is kind of a minor one for me. This is mainly, this might be just me, but this dongle here, when you plug it into the front USB port of the Xbox, it's really tight. You have to like really wiggle it in order for it to actually connect. When you try to take it out, it requires quite a bit of force, and I'm afraid of using this again, because I'm afraid eventually it might break the USB dongle here, or even break the USB port on the Xbox. So I say maybe stick to using it wired, because, you know, wirelessly does work. Though, again, maybe this is just me. When I use it wired, it acts really wonky when I'm navigating the menu. So I'm not pressing anything, and it'll like go up, which is pretty rare. I've never had that happen before. So I tried recalibrating the joysticks, and sometimes it works, but other times it does it again. So yeah, if you're planning on getting this for the Xbox, I say stick to using it wired, because yeah, a few minor really weird menu hiccups. Maybe it's just me, I'm not sure you all have that experience, but yeah. Now let's get to the three sort of big things. Well, two are sort of big, one's really big. Now, for the first kind of big con for me, the shelf feels fairly light. You know, it's not the best plastic out there. You know, doesn't feel solid as a standard Xbox controller, I'll tell you that. And to think, this is meant to compete with the Elite Series 2 controller, which is a much more solid controller. Definitely check out my review on that. But, you know, it feels solid enough, but I don't know. I feel like the show is a little bit more durable, maybe with better quality materials. I think this would be a better sell for me. Now, another big thing about this controller, these modules, as of this video recording, they don't sell replaceable modules for this, so if any of these break, you either have to buy a separate circuit board for the modules on Amazon, which that might be a decent solution since those have Hall effect sensors, which will make these thumbsticks a little better. So yeah, either do that or cut your losses and get another Pro BFG, which I'll leave that to you whether you want to do that. But yeah, they don't sell replaceable modules for this, so if you develop stick drift, even after recalibrating, they still develop stick drift, you're screwed. So either replace the circuit board or shell another $180, which I would not advise anyone to do that unless you like this controller. So yeah, the quality of the shell and the fact that they don't sell replaceable modules, those are kind of big for me. But the biggest con for me for this controller are these triggers. Now, it's not like they're unresponsive or anything. They're too responsive. Yeah, I do not like these triggers at all because they are way too sensitive. Like, even in the hair trigger mode, well, yeah, the hair trigger, it's supposed to be so you just barely touch it and it'll actuate. But even with full travel mode, you barely touch the triggers and they'll actuate. And it's really annoying. I play Borderlands with this, and the way I hold the controller is like this, and I barely touch the controller. I'm aiming down sights or firing my gun when I didn't intend to. And yeah, again, just the slightest amount of movement. Whatever springs they use on here aren't the best. They should have used something similar to what your standard Xbox controllers have, because these triggers, again, they're really solid. They're analog, have a good amount of travel, and they work. These, way too sensitive. They have a decent amount of travel, but again, you barely touch them and they actuate. These models will be digital triggers because you just press it and they actuate. And it doesn't take that much force to actuate these triggers. It's really annoying. It's a huge flaw for me, and one of the reasons it's kind of a hard recommend. But everything else about the controller is good. Again, the modular aspect is really good. You know, the programmable back buttons and the clutch triggers system does work, setting up the travel speed and stuff, but the sensitivity of the triggers, it makes it a hard sell for me. But yeah, it has other features that you expect from a controller this price. You know, the separate profiles, you know, the programmable back buttons, you know, the swappable thumbsticks. Those are all really good, but again, minor quality things like this and these super sensitive triggers, I don't know. It does make it a hard recommend for me, but yeah. So anyway, the Victrix Pro BFG. Now, as far as pros go, it's very modular. You have the programmable back buttons. You have the clutch trigger system, which does work as intended. You have the swappable thumbsticks and D-pads. You have swappable profiles. And yeah, it has a lot going for it, but as far as cons go, I guess get the more obvious one out of the way. It's really expensive. It's the same price as a Series Elite 2 controller. The controller shell itself feels kind of cheap. They don't sell replaceable modules. And the biggest flaw for me, these triggers are way too sensitive. Way too sensitive for my liking. So, for the Victrix Pro BFG, do I recommend this controller? You know, it's hard to say. Now, in a way, I do like the controller. You know, I do like the modular aspect of it. I like, you know, the Pro controller features, the back buttons and stuff like that. There are some features I like about it. You know, But the shell, you know, the controller shell itself is a little more solid. It definitely would better recommend for me. If they sell replaceable modules for this, like I said, as of this video, they still haven't made any. It'd be better, but these triggers, they're way too sensitive for my liking. Now, for others, it might be a big deal. Like, you might hold the controller a little differently. Maybe you just rest them on your bumpers instead of the triggers, and then swap it over if you need them. But these super sensitive triggers, you know, it makes it a hard sell for me. Though, again, some people might like that. I'm not one of those people. Now, who would I recommend this controller for? Well, if you're into fighting games, this might be a controller to look into because of those 8-way thumbstick gates, as well as the fight pad module, which is really good. So, if you're into fighting games, this might be a controller to look into. If you're into first-person shooters, this might be a controller to look into, despite these sensitive triggers. But, you know, having the back buttons and stuff, you know, that'd be a nice thing to have. If you want a modular controller, like being able to swap the modules around and stuff like that, that might be a feature some people like. This might be a controller to look into. But, for everyone else, I say maybe skip this controller. You know, it has a lot of cool features, but there are a few flaws that kind of make it a hard recommend for general gaming. But like, if you're into like first-person shooters, if you're into race or fighting games, if you want a modular controller, if you're a competitive gamer, which, yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, this actually has a tournament lock mode. I forgot what buttons you press, but you hold it down and it'll lock the menu and option buttons. So if you're playing in a tournament mode and you press these buttons, you get disqualified from the tournament. But if you turn on the tournament lock mode, it'll disable these, so you'll be good to go. So, you know, if you're a competitive gamer, you play a lot of tournaments and stuff, this might be a controller to look into. But for everyone else, maybe skip this controller. Again, it's really expensive, and for that price, you're probably better off getting an Elite Series 2 controller, or maybe spending a little more and get like a custom controller from Hex Gaming or Scuff or, you know, companies like that. So for my verdict, I'm gonna have to say maybe. Now again, if these triggers weren't so sensitive, or if at least the controller shell was a lot more solid in construction, I'd probably give it a hesitant yes. But as it is, there are some features that might be good for some people. There are some features, you know, some people don't care about, and there are a few flaws on here that might make it a hard sell for some people. But should you buy the Victrix Pro BFG? Honestly, it depends on what you're looking for. In the end, that's what matters. As for me, you know, I'll still use this controller every now and then, but I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be my daily driver for the Xbox. It's probably not going to be my daily driver on the PC. It might be a controller pick up every now and then, just do something different, but, you know, as far as daily drivers go, I'll probably stick with the Elite Series 2, or even the standard Xbox controller, or hell, even the Hyperkin controllers, though, you know, if I had to choose between the Hyperkin Duke and this, you know, I'd probably go with this, because at least it's modular and stuff like that, and it's a lot more comfortable in my hands compared to that. But yeah, it's not going to be my daily driver, but, you know, it might be good every now and then kind of controller, just like move around with the modules and stuff like that, and maybe play something that doesn't utilize these triggers. Yeah. But like I said, if you're into fighting games, first-person shooters, competitive games, maybe check this controller out. For everyone else, I say skip it. Save your money and probably get an Elite Series 2, or heck, there are even cheaper alternatives than this that might be better. But yeah, pretty controversial controller, but in the end, you know, it's up to you whether or not I think it's worth $180. So anyway, this is I'm Giving Caleb signing out. Have a good day.
Suck it up, life's tough, we know that. Someone's got better stuff and can throw cash. Tell them I don't give a fuck, make my own path. I don't need no handouts, I'm my own man. Gotta get it, I'll get it and fast, yeah. Got a girl and she'll get it, she bad, yeah. Man, I only get down with the best, I'ma leave the complaints with the rest,